See over the next few slides, what happens in Endeavor is we have a social contract with our entrepreneurs. We say to our entrepreneurs, we will help you to become big and successful. Now, when that happens, we expect that you will do the same, right, by helping other entrepreneurs. We want you to multiply yourself. And if they also do that, right, you see there's a big ripple effect, right, a multiplier effect. So with that, let me just get into the presentation very quickly. I'm going to have a few slides, just overview Endeavor, then I'm going to get into an interesting discussion on the origins of the multiplier effect in Silicon Valley. Okay, so that's, Chelsea said, who are we? Global community, and this is important, of, by, and for entrepreneurs, right? The entrepreneurs basically rule the roost in this organization. Now, what's a high-impact entrepreneur? Chelsea said, those who dream big, scale fast, and pay it forward. But what we say here's Pilipinas, right? They are 3M entrepreneurs. They're entrepreneurs who are magaling, matino, mapagbigay. Right? And when we screen, right, we screen for these three values. So if you're only magaling, if you're only matino, kailangan mo only magaling, matino, mapagbigay. Next one. Let's go to the bottom here, right? The core belief, right, in Endeavor is these kinds of entrepreneurs can transform economies, right? We can lift up whole economies. And what we do to achieve that is we create a multiplier effect. So we try to inspire entrepreneurs to dream big, support and invest them to scale faster, and then provide them with a platform to pay it forward. We make it very easy for them to pay it forward. And the reason we do this, right, the why, is we want to build a thriving ecosystem of entrepreneurs in emerging markets like our own, or underserved markets. So even some markets in Europe and the US where it's not very easy for an entrepreneur to become successful. How do we help them? Just very quickly, right? These are at least 5 ways we help. Number one, we give them access to a peer network. So in Endeavor today, there's over 1,300 other entrepreneurs like Abed and like Paul, who become peer, peer mentors, if you like. They understand their pain and they can learn so much from each other. Second is access to a network of mentors and experts. So we have today about 5,000 mentors around the world. These are all very successful business people, all very successful investors, all very successful entrepreneurs. Third is access to capital. So we do actually have a fund part to our organization, right? We raised Fund 4, we call it Endeavor Catalyst Fund, Fund 4. And that's about almost $300 million, which only gets invested into Endeavor entrepreneurs. And I'll talk about that in a few seconds. Personal growth. One of the things we do is we make sure that these entrepreneurs get to know themselves and get to be better versions of themselves. So we run these educational programs once a year during the summer, one with Harvard Business School. It's a 1-week program on entrepreneurial leadership, and a similar one in Stanford Business School. And that runs during the summer. And then the last thing here is a platform to help you pay it forward. We give you many opportunities to do those 3 things, right? To be inspirational, right? So Abbott and Paul are here being very inspired. Paul, look inspiring on. We're here, right? We give them opportunities to inspire others to follow you. Opportunities for them to mentor others and opportunities for them to invest, both in Endeavor through the fund or invest in other entrepreneurs. Next one, Judge. Here is where we've invested in the fund, right? So as you can see, it's all over the world, right? Because we are a global nonprofit. And if you look here in the Philippines, M-Clinica 2017, Sprout 2019, Kuku 2021, Grocery 2022. Am I missing anything, guys? Mineski 1 year. 2020. Sorry, sorry, my bad. 2022 also Mineski, which is an esports company. So that makes it fine. Okay, next step. Here's another interesting thing. If we look at our global portfolio, there are 53 companies, I guess, that you can call like unicorns, right? $1 billion or more valuation.
one day, magkakaroon yun ng Pilipinas, right? If you look at this thing right now, there's not. We have a few that are kind of in the hundreds of millions, and hopefully with the next couple of years, we can get them to $1 billion valuation. And then here's the next one, right, which I found very interesting. Next one. Look at this, right? Without intending to, one day we woke up. Early this year we woke up and we realized, wow, if you look around the world at all the unicorns, Endeavor has been the third most prolific in early stage investing. In other words, Series A investing and prior. We're number 3, having invested in 23 of those. Next to the biggest names in investing, like Tiger and SoftBank and Sequoia. Okay, this is the last slide to talk about Endeavor, the overview. This is our footprint. This is where we operate. So as you can see, there are countries in blue, which is where we are, and then we're looking to expand into the orange one. So in our region, soon we'll have Thailand, and soon we'll have Bangladesh. Okay, I told you I was going to tell you the story about how the multiplier effect actually started. And actually 8 years ago, or 8.5 years ago, before I became part of Endeavor, I heard a talk, as I said, right, in Ayala Museum by somebody in charge of expanding Endeavor. And she had this crazy idea, right? She gave us a crazy idea. The crazy idea was that if you want to transform economies, if you want to lift up your GDP, find really good entrepreneurs, help them scale up, and encourage them to pay it forward. And if you do that, you'll create a multiplier effect. So where does this multiplier effect come from? Right? So I think a good place to see where it happened is in Silicon Valley. Right? How did Silicon Valley become what it is today, which is home of hundreds of the most iconic tech companies in the world? How did that get to be? Right? Obviously, it had the benefit of the U.S. Defense Department, which was spending money on R&D projects. It had the benefit of Stanford University, which as early as the 40s was telling its engineers, go and start new companies. But much of Silicon Valley actually has to do with this guy. So this is a physicist named William Shockley, who was working at Bell Labs in the 50s, and he wins a Nobel Prize for his work in transistors that go into semiconductors. Right? And this guy was a genius, but he decides that he's going to take his invention and commercialize it for himself, right? Not at Bell Labs. So he sets up his own company, Shockley Semiconductor, and he decides to set it up all the way across the U.S. to be near his ailing mother. I said, medyo mama's boy ito, right? So it must be, well, actually it's a good son. It must be with his ailing mother. And he decides for his headquarters, it would be a town called Mountain View, California. Right? Some of you know Mountain View as the headquarters of Google. I don't know if any of you have been to this place, but that's where Google's headquarters. But back then, 6,500 people. It was really kind of a little farming town. So you would think this was a stupid move, right? Why would anyone try to build a tech company set up in Mountain View? Where would you find the capital? Where would you find the talent? Buti na lang, he had a Nobel Prize, right? So he was able to get capital, and he was able to find 8 very talented engineers, right? Fortunately for him. Unfortunately for these engineers, William Shockley may something called Bakta, right? He was paranoid schizophrenic, like many geniuses, right? He would make his employees take lie detector tests. Right? He was that kind of boss. So he drove them so insane, one day they just decided they were all going to quit. Right? Within a year they quit. And they started a new company, a new semiconductor company they called Fairchild Semiconductor, right? Which is still alive today, by the way. But this was set up in the late 50s. And they were so good at what they did. They were so smart. They invented the integrated chip. That within less than 10 years, they were the second largest semiconductor company in the world. Right? Fantastic. But after that success, they didn't stop there. They didn't stop there. And what happens after that is what many writers say is the most significant event in business history in the last 100 years. What did they start to do? They started to build new companies. They started to invest in new companies. They started to mentor other new companies. Here's what this looks like, right? In the 12 years after they left Fairchild, you have 31 spin-off companies, right? All of them in that little farming area known as Mountain View, today known as Silicon Valley. Who were some of these companies? You look at that, right? Intel was started by one of those 8. His name is Gordon Moore. And he was the guy who coined the phrase Moore's Law. You know Moore's Law, which is the power of chips double every, I think it's 18 months. You have companies like Applied Materials, National Semiconductor. The last two are two of the most powerful and famous venture capital companies in the world. Lahat yan nanggaling from easy somehow. Right? Next slide. Now, if you fast forward to today, there are literally hundreds of companies, right? Big companies like Apple and Oracle and Yahoo and Google that somehow trace their roots back to these days. Right? We call them the fair children. In fact, if you look at all the public companies in the Valley today, about 70% of them trace their roots back to the Fairchild Mafia. We did some calculation before. I think they represent over $2 trillion in annual revenue, something like that. It's bigger than the GDP of India. Next one, guys. And this culture, right? This culture of multiplying has come to define the culture of Silicon Valley, right? So today we hear about the PayPal Mafia, right? These are the gentlemen, these are the executives who became phenomenally wealthy after eBay acquired PayPal in 2002. And I don't know if you can recognize some of these people. This is Peter Thiel, who was one of the founders of PayPal, who went on to start this big AI company called Palantir. This is our friend Elon Musk, who started SpaceX and Tesla, and now is causing all sorts of shitstorms with Twitter. This is Reid Hoffman, who started LinkedIn, who's now actually a member of the Endeavor Global Board. Right? So as you can see, this unleashed a whole wave of new businesses. And by the way, many of them also are investors in other equally iconic tech companies like Airbnb, Facebook, and Square. Okay. Now, you might be asking, okay, what does this have to do with the Philippines? That's Silicon Valley. They have Stanford, they have all these funds. Can you do this in emerging markets? Right? This is the question Endeavor asked itself actually over 20 years ago as we were starting. Can you do this kind of thing in emerging markets? So what we did is we put our researchers to work. We have a research group in New York. And we said, go figure out, right? Does this multiplier effect actually happen in emerging markets? So the first market they studied was the first market in Endeavor, which is Argentina. What they did was they went into the tech ecosystem, they interviewed all of the founders, there was about 200 of them, and they asked them 5 questions. They asked them, who inspired you to become an entrepreneur? Who invested in you? Who mentored you? Where did you train before you started your own? And did you start other companies? And then we began mapping the connections, right? So the more connections there were to you, the bigger your bubble would appear. So if you look at this slide, this is Argentina during the first dot-com boom. So right before the crash in 2000, right? This is 17 companies, right? This is a few companies. And if you see these lines, these are the lines of who's inspiring, who's mentoring, who's investing in who. Not too many lines, right? Now fast forward to 2007, basically it's tripled the number of companies, and you see much more interaction. But you wouldn't say this is robust yet, right? This is like, 30 to 40 companies. The interesting view comes in 2014, where you can see there's clearly been an explosion in the number of companies, in the number of interactions, right? This is the visualization of the multiplier effect. That's what it looks like when you map it out. You'll notice that there are a few that are much larger than the others. Right? Those are the ones that have the most connections. They did the most inspiring, the most mentoring, the most invested. You might even call them the padrinos, right? Or the ecosystem, right? Who do people go to for help? It's these guys. Another interesting thing about this map is of the 4 largest companies, or the 4 largest bubbles, 3 of them are Endeavor. Which is not surprising because that's how we screen for entrepreneurs, right? When you say, are you going to go and inspire and mentor and invest in others? So up there on the right is Patagon, one of the very, very first companies that Endeavor helped in its history, right? This was a sheep farmer from Patagonia in Argentina. He built the E-Trade, like a financial trading platform for Latin America. Sold it to Banco Santander for almost $1 billion. Then you have there the one of Mercado Libre, which is the largest e-commerce company today in all of Latin America, now valued at $45 billion, and in the top 5 most valued companies in Argentina. And on the left there, a software services company called Global, which listed in 2014, is now worth $10 billion. Next slide, please. And you know, we've done this research in market after market after market. And what we observe, what we notice is they all look like this. They all look the same. As it turns out, there's a handful of these entrepreneurs that are crucial to the flowering of the ecosystem, right? These are the high-impact entrepreneurs. And what we see is they all start building these little mafias around them, right? Mafias like, next slide. You know, this is an Endeavor company called Rappi in Colombia. They are a food delivery company, and they now operate across all of Latam. And they're the first unicorn in Colombia. This company has spawned over 100 companies, right? So people that work with them for the last 10 years, many of them have gone off to build their own companies. It's also like this other mafia in the Middle East. This is Karim. They are the Uber of the Middle East. They're now worth several $1 billion. Same thing, right? 100 companies have been spawned just from this company alone. Next one, then. Oh yeah, okay, so now we get closer to home. What about the Philippines? What have we seen in the Philippines? We're celebrating our 8th anniversary this year. Okay? So since the time we opened the doors to the table, what's happened? Did we see the same multiplier effect? Well, we have we're supporting 33 entrepreneurs, and I can say with hand on heart, all of them in one way or the other is trying to multiply themselves, either by mentoring, by investing, by sharing their story to inspire others. Right? You might recognize some of them. So you have Kenneth Bobonquet, for instance. You know, Kenneth is always mentoring the next generation of designers. People like Steve Benitez of Bose Coffee. You know Bose Coffee, right? I don't know if you noticed, there's a bunch of products in his store that are actually made by social entrepreneurs. Chaalaya, the weed is from a group in Cebu called Anfield, which is mga nanais doing all of these weeds. So he works with these social entrepreneurs and says, hey, I'll get you ready to be in my store, right? I'm going to level you up to be in my store. There's Abbott right here, who has launched a venture builder to create the next generation of health tech company. We have people also like Alex Gentry and Meredith No, who are inspiring women to go and scale up businesses and to go and build businesses. So I think this is a very encouraging sign that the multiplier effect is alive and well. What you will see in the impact report, next slide, Judge, is some of these entrepreneurs building these little mafias, right? So you have Nick Noliero, who through his venture builder Eden has just spawned, right, so many companies, either because he's investing or mentoring, right? You have Ron Hose of Points. So, you know Points, right, which got acquired by Gojek. Actually, ang tawag sa kanya, mentor ng bayan, right? And, you know, he has this little community up in La Union of company builders, right, which is kind of growing, and it's becoming a very vibrant community of entrepreneurs. Next slide. Richard Eldridge, who started the company Lendo, who has also, you know, gone on to mentor and invest in many, many companies. There is our friend, Paul Rivera. You know, I think an important thing about Paul is when Paul set up this business, there was no support for entrepreneurs in the Philippines. There were no engineers. There was nobody. So Paul, can I call you OG? He's one of the OGs, right? He paved the way for the rest of us, right? He was crucial, and they trained their own engineers. They had to scrap to raise money, right? From sources that didn't live here, right? And so we owe Paul actually and the Caliber gang a lot because they really helped us kumbaga, clear all the trees so that the roads could be built. Okay, and then the next slide is some of the more recent entrepreneurs that have joined Endeavor. We have Roland Ross and Rexy Dorado of Kumu. We have Steve C. of Great Deals. Right? Now, I'm going to end with 4 slides. Again, these are also in your impact report. And this is the research that we did. So we did research just like the one in Argentina. And what you'll notice is it's very similar to what happened in Argentina, right? So starting with this, pre-20 or up through 2013, only a handful of companies. And you'll see here, right? This is Caliber. This is Caliber, right? So Caliber's here already. Lentos here, right? Already beginning to mentor. And then if you fast forward a little bit to 2017, you see a quadrupling of the number of companies. You see also many, many more connections in between or between the entrepreneurs. And then by the time we get to this year, same thing that happened in Argentina, right? This is more than a doubling of the previous slide. So more companies, more connections, and again, we have the emergence of the big bubbles. So this is Nix, right? This is Coins. This is Caliber. This is Kumu, right? So in your, it's a bit hard to see, but in your impact report, you'll see actually who are some of these emerging bubbles. And again, like in Argentina, the big ones tend to be Endeavor companies because that's the way that we screen. So we're very excited. We're very encouraged. I think it's working here in the Philippines. And I'll just close with, another way to think about the work that we're trying to do here, right? That every entrepreneur who's been successful at some point has had to stand on the shoulders of somebody else, right? But what we want to happen is when they become successful themselves, that other entrepreneurs will stand on their shoulders. And with that, I will end, and I guess we're open to